Welcome to the Click podcast. I'm Dani Watson, a mindset and manifestation expert and founder of The Click, a company that helps women overcome their fears and limiting beliefs to create a life and business that they love. Within this podcast, I will help you get clear on what you want, identify the blocks that are holding you back, transform your mindset and raise your vibration so that you can co-create magic with the universe. If you are looking to design a life that truly sets your soul on fire and manifest more success and abundance, then you are in the right place. Hello ladies, and welcome to a brand new episode. It has been a hot minute since I recorded a podcast, and there is a good reason why. So I would like to excitedly announce that we will soon be launching a brand new app. Now, I'm not going to tell you too much right now, but what I will say is that if you are somebody that loves mindset, rituals, meditation, emotional freedom technique, various different healing tools, coaching modalities, and you like to integrate those things into your life on a daily basis and really immerse yourself in the world of spirituality, personal development, then this app is definitely going to be for you. So all of the details of the app will be shared soon. So that is what I've been busy with. Now, the other exciting announcement that I have is that I have opened up a very limited number of spaces for one-on-one coaching. Now, this has not been something I have offered in a very, very long time. The main reason has really been because I've been focused on building my business in a way that has been scalable and sustainable. And that for me has meant group programs and the work that we do within corporate. And that's really commanded most of my time and energy. Now, I'm very fortunate now that my company is in a position where those group programs and the scalable programs that we have really helped me grow and scale my business dramatically over the past few years. And it means now I'm in a position where I can kind of take a step back and think, well, how do I really want to show up in my business? And I love obviously being sort of the CEO of my company. I love making those strategic decisions and, thinking about the growth of the company. But I also want to connect with why I started this in the first place. And that was really because I love the experience of coaching one-on-one. So I really scaled back my one-on-one work over the past few years. And I've been doing a bit more of it recently, mainly with women that we've trained as coaches, really sort of supporting them in growing their coaching business. And my husband kind of pointed it out. He was like, wow, when you come off those coaching calls, he's like, there's something about your kind of energy and your expression, and he's like, they really bring you a lot of joy. And I was like, yeah, they really do. And he's like, well, why don't you do more of them? Because we've been kind of talking a bit recently about, what is my core zone of genius, and where do I want to spend my time, within my business and within the work that I do. And for me, the things that bring me the most joy are the things that I want to double down on. Now, it was really interesting because I was having a conversation about, it was actually in one of my feminine leadership programs. I was really coaching around the balance between the masculine and the feminine within a business context, and how we almost need a blend of both of these energies in order to see the success that we want. And so the masculine is very much about the logical, the reasoning, the strategy, and then the feminine is much more intuitive. It's much more going with the flow. It's much more about what brings you joy. And when it comes to rational, logical decisions, one of the decisions for me to step away from doing so much one-on-one was very much a masculine-driven decision, because on the logical side of things, it didn't make sense for me to be doing the things in my business which weren't scalable. My time isn't scalable, and there's only so many hours I could work in a one-on-one capacity. And if I wanted to grow, I would need to, use my time in a more effective way. So that was kind of a masculine decision. But now being more connected with my feminine and wanting to lean into it even further and really find, okay, well, what lights me up? What brings me joy? It was realizing that, okay, it is this one-on-one work. And although logically, if we're talking about the masculine side, it probably doesn't make business sense. But again, it's coming back to, what is my why? What really lights me up? So with that being said, I will link in the show notes because there will be an application process for anybody who wants to apply for one-on-one coaching. I obviously have to make sure that I am putting those boundaries in place on myself because I know I am somebody who's very prone. When I love doing something, I tend to go all in on it and I overcommit myself. And so I want to make sure that I'm still creating the right balance there and honoring my time and my energy and not overcommitting to too many sessions, but I will have more availability on the one-on-one side of things. And I will pop the link into the show notes for how you can schedule a session. Now let's go into this week's episode because something I want to dive into is the law of detachment. Okay, so detaching ourselves from our desires and how actually doing this can really get us to where we want to be. Now, we're often really attached to this cause and effect mentality when it comes to getting to our goals. So we kind of assume that struggle, success, hard work, doing is going to get us to where we want to be. But for this episode, I invite you to look at things from a new perspective where we can get what we want in a powerful way, but also in this effortless way. So everything that we're experiencing and the circumstances that we find ourselves in are reflections of what is going on for us internally. So we know this, it's our thoughts, it's our beliefs, and it's what we assume about ourselves, what we assume about how the world works. Now, these are shaping our reality. We know this. It's a very common principle I've spoken about so many times before. But no matter how many times we hear this, it's often, okay, I hear this, I understand this, but there's this deep down belief that it isn't really true. We're so attached to the idea that it's our efforts, the doing, the action that's getting us to our goals. But I want you to consider for a second how nature works. So let's just imagine we've got a tiny little seed. It's nestled in the ground. That seed doesn't need to struggle and strive to turn into the beautiful oak tree. It doesn't. All it needs to do is simply exist. It doesn't need to try and force its way into existence. It doesn't force itself to become the tree. It just transforms. And nature is a really good example of how when we are provided with the right conditions, so for the seed, it's things like sunlight, nourishment, love, we're just going to blossom beautifully and effortlessly without having to try. And we're no different. We are that tiny little seed. We think about our desires. Those are our seeds. And just like those seeds, our desires don't need to be forced into reality. We just need to create the right environment for them to grow. So the right environment then, what is that right environment? What are those conditions that we need? These are your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs. This inner world is the nourishing soil in which the seeds of your desires can thrive. When we force things, we know that it doesn't feel natural. Okay, so imagine that you're coming from a place of lack. You're thinking about what you want from a place of, I don't have it yet. And in that place, there's often a lot of struggle behind getting to where you want to be. You feel that sense of desperation. And what you're essentially saying here to the universe is, I don't have what I want. Therefore, I have to struggle and work hard to get it. And what we're doing in that moment is actually reinforcing the lack of your desires, reinforcing the absence that you're trying to actually escape from. So just consider for a second, if you absolutely believed you already had everything that you wanted, all of your desires, would you believe that you needed to struggle? Of course you wouldn't. You would be relaxed. You'd be enjoying yourself. You'd be going with the flow because you would know and trust that it's already yours. And this is the key, this energy of detachment. Feeling like your desires are already fulfilled and having that unwavering conviction that your desire is already yours. This is the key. Now, how can we create this feeling of fulfillment as if what we want is already yours? Convincing ourselves of something that hasn't yet been manifested already exists. And this comes back to your imagination. Our imagination is such a powerful thing. It's not just something that we can use for daydreaming. It's actually something that is very sacred, because this is where our realities are being created. So when we're visualizing, especially when we're doing it with emotion attached to it, the conviction then becomes the roadmap for our life. It's going to play out within our actual lives. So rather than pushing for things, struggling for things, spend more time within your imagination. Create a scene in your mind that represents the fulfillment of your desires, and make this scene as vivid and as real as you can. I want you to use all of your senses here. All of your senses. So not just internally seeing what you want, but smelling it, tasting it. How do things feel in your hands when you touch them? What can you smell? What are the sensations that you're feeling? The emotions that you're feeling? Trying immersing yourself, not just in the visual, but using all of those senses. And what's really key here is that the effects of doing this compound over time. So consistency is key. It's something that you need to be doing again and again and again. But here's the important thing. It can't be something that we're forcing ourselves to do. So this needs to come without any sort of stress or pressure. Now, I've seen this play out in my own life where I'm feeling really, really negative. I'm in a bad place. I've got a lot of anxiety. I'm stressing about something. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm perhaps, taken on too many things at once. I'm feeling that stress and pressure. And I think, okay, I just need to connect visually with my desires. But because I'm so stressed, because I'm overwhelmed, I feel like my mind cannot focus. I cannot relax into that desire. I'm trying to force myself to feel good. And it doesn't work like that, because we're just adding an extra layer of stress and pressure onto an already quite perhaps toxic internal environment. So if you're feeling stressed or pressured right now, the first step is actually leveling out your nervous system, bringing yourself back to this place of calmness. So it might be, to begin with, you first just need to not think about anything at all. Maybe it's practicing some breath work. Maybe it's just a very simple meditation where you are just calming your mind, slowing down your brain, slowing down your thoughts, regulating your nervous system a little bit more before you start connecting with that vision. Now, I obviously don't want to deny that action is, of course, important to getting what we want and necessary. But this action, it should be something that flows very naturally. And it should actually come from this higher state of consciousness. Okay, so the highest state of consciousness is when we're so connected with our desires, we are emotionally and energetically feeling as if they're already ours. We want to take the action from that place, because when we take action from that place, it's not going to be desperate action. It's not going to be forced action. It's going to be detached action. So what I mean by this is that energy of detachment. It's like, okay, I'm choosing to do this just for the joy of doing it, and I'm detached from any kind of outcome. We can be in that energy of detachment because we completely trust that what we want is already a done deal. It's already existing in our reality. Contrast that with when you take action and you're not in that higher state of consciousness. You're not absolutely energetically connected to your desires. So maybe you're feeling stressed, maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, and you're trying to visualize what you want, thinking, okay, I just need to see what I want and I will manifest it. But you're trying to force yourself to feel better. You're trying to force yourself to feel the presence of your desires. And in that state of stress and anxiety, you take action. You take it from that place of desperation, from that place of panic, from that place of lack. Now, when you are fully embodying the feeling of your desires being fulfilled, the right actions are going to present themselves to you. They'll come to you quite easily. We won't need to overthink things. So if you're feeling like you're stuck in your head, you're trying to overthink what it is that you want, you're trying to logically plan out the steps you need to take, and it's making you feel overwhelmed and it's making you feel tired or stressed, you're not doing it in the right way. Inspired action means the path just presents itself to you. It's almost like you kind of intuitively know exactly what you need to do. Or maybe it's opportunities just seem to appear and show up like magic. Somebody guides you and tells you what to do and you think, yeah, okay, this feels good. People or circumstances that you need to manifest your desires, they just gravitate in towards your life effortlessly. So I want to give you an example here about a client I was working with recently, and she had a huge desire to become an artist. And let's say if she was approaching this passion, this desire from this place of scarcity, she would probably find herself stressing herself, trying to take every single possible art class possible, trying to really, make herself the best artist she could be. She'd probably doubt her talent. She'd have quite a lot of fears about, is she good enough? And maybe she could continue on that path and achieve some degree of success, but it might feel like an uphill battle. It's like she's constantly pitching to galleries. She's constantly trying to find opportunities. She's pushing for things. It feels like hard work. And in this place, she's filled with that self-doubt. She's filled with that pressure. Now, imagine this same client, this same woman. She changes her mindset and begins to actually embody the feeling of already being that successful artist. So she sees herself creating these beautiful pieces, sharing her work. She's receiving love and praise from her friends, from her admirers, and she really immerses herself in this beautiful, joyful vision until it becomes her truth. And as she does this, amazing opportunities just seem to land in her lap. So perhaps she meets a mentor who really believes in her gifts and manages to get her art displayed in a local art gallery. Clients just seem to drop into her lap out of thin air because they resonate with her, because she's in this energy of, I absolutely trust in myself, in my art, in my work, in my success. Now, what matters is that her outer reality aligns with her inner conviction of being an artist. Everything is unfolding naturally and effortlessly. There's no need for her to struggle. Now, this isn't to say that struggles and challenges won't ever come our way, like this is life. But what is interesting is that the challenges and struggles presented to us are often a reflection of our limiting beliefs. So when we're experiencing something, it's often how we're perceiving what we're experiencing that's making us see it as a challenge or as, a failure or as something that we've really got to battle against. Now, when we push against our challenges and our struggles, we actually reinforce the mindset that created those struggles in the first place. So instead of fighting against the obstacles that come up against, what if you just simply assumed that they didn't exist? So Abraham Hicks talks about burying your head in the sand, and I love this phrase, where we can almost kind of have this mentality of ignorance is bliss. We can actually just pretend and assume that our troubles do not exist. Now, of course, maybe there's practical things that we need to do. So let's say, for example, one of your troubles is bills to pay. You've got debts that need to be paid off. We don't want to just act as if they don't exist and allow those debts to accumulate, but we don't need to give more energy than what they really deserve. So do the practical, logical things to manage your debts, but don't then dwell on them. Compartmentalize your energy. So in the moments that you're having to pay off those bills, you might have to give a bit of brain power to thinking about them, but then draw a line under the sand. They don't need to have any of more of your thought or your energy. Assume that they do not exist. The majority of the time, we want to be living in the belief that the way to our desires is free from challenges and obstacles rather than expecting there to be challenges. And again, we're often addicted to this idea that it's going to be hard work, it's going to be stressful. But what if you were to assume that it was just going to be smooth sailing every step of the way? When we don't give our thoughts and energy to the challenges that present themselves, we don't overthink them, we don't try and force ourselves out of our challenges, sometimes the solutions actually present themselves really easily. So let's say something has cropped up in your life, a big problem, a big challenge, and you start stressing about it. Our natural instinct is to start overthinking all of the possible solutions, and it plays on our mind all day. How does that feel? It feels exhausting. It feels draining. It makes us feel stressed. And then we start perhaps to take action from that place of stress, desperation, and panic. But let me invite you to consider an alternative solution where you're presented with your challenge, and rather than thinking about it, you just assume that this challenge has just disappeared. Somebody else has figured it out and it no longer exists for you. You continue to go through your day as if this challenge just does not exist. You assume that it's already solved, it's already cleared, and you just don't even think about it. It may be that the challenge just solves itself. A solution just comes up and you've not had to even try to fix things. Remember that whatever we're giving our energy to, we are creating more of. So if we're thinking about our problems, we are just going to create more problems. Now, something that I see a lot of, often actually in the law of attraction space, is this idea that we've got to think positively, and we'll have to force ourselves to think positively to battle against our negative emotions. I was definitely guilty of this when I first discovered things like affirmations and, positive thinking. It was almost like I was trying to control my thoughts through willpower. Just, affirming, yeah, I am happy, I love myself, I am successful. And it just felt like this very forceful approach. Now, instead of doing it this way, what I found worked better was to actually just gently observe what I was thinking and what I was feeling, but without any judgment, without labeling the anxiety as bad or, the fear as bad. Just seeing them actually just as a temporary state of conscious that doesn't actually have any power over me. So a good example of this was back when I was very new to coaching and my finances were in a very big mess. I was, accumulating a lot of different debts on different credit cards, and it was making me feel overwhelmed. And whilst I did try and just bury my head in the sand and sort of neglect what was going on, I felt like I was actually constantly thinking about my finances and how I was going to change things. And it was almost like this frantic need to come up with some sort of solution. And the more I tried to push for a solution, the worse it seemed to get. Rather than trying to struggle to find a solution and take lots of action to try and see if I could figure out a way to make this work. So for example, my business, I was starting my coaching business. I realized that this sort of struggle and stress I was having to try and get my business off the ground was not going to work because it was keeping me in that lack mentality. So instead, I started to really get into a mental scene regularly where I was, paying my bills, all of the credit card debt was paid off already, money was flowing freely into my life. And yeah, maybe to begin with, it did feel like faking it until you make it, like pretending. But the thing with the subconscious mind is that when we present it with an image enough times, if we think about something enough times, the subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. So over time, that started to feel like that was actually my reality. And I started to actually feel abundance throughout my day. And then things began to really shift for me in my business without really needing to try any harder. So business opportunities appeared, clients seemed to appear, things that I perhaps hadn't noticed before because I was so stressful. And I started to realize that things can come to me from unexpected sources. And before I knew it, I paid off my credit card debts, and that financial abundance was really starting to flow into my life. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I've visualize my desires. I've done this so many times and nothing's changed. Maybe I'm getting this wrong. I'd say just be gentle with yourself, because we've got to remember that we are trying to undo a lifetime of conditioning, and it will take time and patience. And persistence doesn't necessarily mean we have to force things. So again, it's being persistent, but think of that in terms of consistency and the regularity at which you are thinking and connecting with your desires, rather than trying to force yourself. So again, if you are feeling stressed and anxious, maybe at that point, visualizing your desires is not the next best step for you. Maybe it's taking some time to quieten your mind, be in meditation, listen to some relaxing music, take a bath, just sit and do nothing and get yourself to a place of feeling better. And then gently start to visualize yourself without having to kind of force it. So again, coming back to the seed, when we plant a seed, are we going to the seed and digging it up every day to see if it's growing? We're not doing that. We're trusting the process. Okay, we're trusting that we're giving it the right conditions, we're giving it the water it needs, the sunlight, the love, and we are therefore allowing the seed to blossom. And again, our desires are like those seeds. We provide them with the right conditions, the fulfillment and the belief in being what you wish to be and having the things that you wish to have. And then we simply allow the manifestation to unfold. Now, something I always recognized as well in my journey, and it's still something I'm working on, is this need to be productive. So I kind of felt like, well, if I'm not pushing for things or forcing for things, I don't want to be somebody that's unproductive. But actually, I started to see productiveness in a different way. Productiveness is not necessarily about how much I do, but how much I receive. So I could do very little and receive a lot, and I would have a very productive day. I've not necessarily had to force anything or take lots of action or exhaust myself. The productivity is in the amount that I've been able to receive. The productivity actually comes from joy and trust. Okay, so when we think about our productivity levels, I invite you to think about not how much have I done, but how much have I enjoyed? How much have I trusted today? Versus how much frantic effort have I put in? Now, a little follow-up exercise for you to think about for the week ahead is to really consider, where are you forcing things? And how can you allow things to be easier? The things that you are forcing, how can you detach from them more? How can you assume that you don't need to do anything and the challenges will work themselves out? Commit to showing up in this way for the next week, and feel free to reach out to me on Instagram and let me know how you get on with this. Dani_Watson_coaching. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, ladies, and I will catch you on the next episode. If you are wanting to build your own successful online coaching business, make sure to check out Freedom, Abundance and Impact, our free 10-day business and mindset course for coaches and aspiring coaches. To access, simply head to wearetheclick.com and click free course in the menu.